Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back for another Q&A session. And hey, for once I am early for this Q&A session, right? So as of now, it is midnight, the 1st of October, right? And I've collected a few questions from you guys for the month of September's Q&A, and we're gonna do a few questions, right? We're gonna answer a few questions from that few posts or few comments that you guys have sent me, alright, in this video. Right, so without further ado, let's get started on this Q&A session. So let's get started. For the first question of the day, we have from Jian Xian asking, what other quality of life changes would you like to see in TOS? For me currently is to trade/evolve Millennium Soulstones into Prime Millennium Soulstones and more Lost Relic stages for diming and farming purposes. Right, so in my opinion, I wouldn't want more Lost Relic stage because there's going to be more work for me, more videos for me to put out and stuff like that, right? So but in terms of like farming feeders and stuff, that's all good and stuff, right? And you get a free diamond upon clearing the advanced difficulty and stuff like that, right? So for me, I think that so far Matt have been doing a good job for the user interface part, apart from some bugs and stuff like that, right? Overall I think it's fine, right? So one thing I really want them to improve is more towards like the trading feature, right? Not trading in terms of cards, but what we have in the trade fortress, right? So for example, right now if you want to trade an item, like for example using bronze mat head or using power release material, you can only do it one by one, right? Like let's say there's one time whereby you can trade prime soulstones for the plum beast, right? I think 5 prime soulstones for 1 plum beast, right? And then you have a purchase quota of 5 per attribute, right? So what I did was I spent like a good 5 to 10 minutes trading it one by one, right? So I need to select 5 prime soulstone to trade for 1 plum beast, and then I have to do it over and over again for 5 times for 1 attribute, and then I need to do it for all 5 attributes to trade them all, right? So honestly, it's a pain in the ass, right? They could have just let us choose as many soulstones as possible, and that equals to the amount of plum beasts that we are going to trade, and just do it in one transaction, right? So that would save a lot of time, right? It's a very good quality of life change, right? So overall I find that there's not much we can, there's everything's in good position, right, in my opinion. So if you guys have any more quality of life change or any more suggestions you want to give to Matt here, right, you can leave it down in the comments below, right? If I see if it's a good suggestion, maybe I'll just just feedback to Matt Head, because I do have that direct connection with Matt Head, right? So I can just give them a personal message and stuff like that, right? That'll be good. If the suggestion is good, I don't think they will turn it down anyways, right? So let's move on to the next question. Alright, so next question, asking, do you feel that Matt Head isn't giving enough breathing space for players, event and collab one after another without having enough time for players to save up, especially those who are not investing real money? Alright, so first things first, right? So we have players, there are two sides, right, of this story. First, we have players that are going to be complaining about the game that is going to be so fast paced, right? For example, like this player right here, and then we'll have another group of players saying, why is there no contents, or why is the content so slow, right? So I think it's based on personal preference and personal speed of playing, right? So overall I find that TOS is quite the pace for the contents, right, for TOS is pretty manageable for me personally, right? So I think we have new contents every 1.5 months, right? So apart from the black card events, right, where they just slot one in between the 2 patch, right? For example, like these Hindu gods, and then we have Mesopotamia right in the middle, right? So that was actually quite taxing on the diamonds, right? So other than that, I think if there is no black card event, I think it's perfectly comfortable for my pace, right? So you can see other super fast paced games, for example like Crash Fever, having like new units or new cards every like 2 weeks and stuff like that, right? So personally, I wouldn't be investing in Crash Fever, right, if I'm gonna play that game long term, right? So overall I find that it's gonna be it's a personal preference thing, right? So you might think that the game is too fast or having too much contents, and while other players think that it is perfectly fine, and they should have even more contents. So I find that, so it's really depends, right? So I don't really have much comments for this, right? So in my opinion, personally, I think that Matt is pushing out contents pretty steadily, right? So one thing that I'm not really a fan of is all this collaboration having exclusive region locks, right? So I understand, I feel players that are out of the regions are really quite unhappy about this, right? So we do have, at one point in time, we have like 3 region lock collabs back to back, right? We had like Crash Fever, and then we had Hunter x Hunter, and then we had Yu Yu Hakusho, right? So that period of time, I can understand like the frustration of some certain players that don't get the content, right? But we will see how Madhead is planning this out, right? So I might understand more from their side, right? What are they planning from now on, like their schedule and stuff like that. Alright, so let's move on to the next question. And hey, what do we have here? We have the mandatory question of every single month, right? I see this every time. I'm not sure why am I still answering it, but because I do have some idea, right? I'm not saying that my prediction is 100% correct. Okay, so we have a question asking again, what is likely the next order in which the series will get their power release, Virtual Rebirth, Awakening Recall, right? My prediction. So I'll go with Awakening Recall first, okay? We'll go with the AR because I'm quite sure it's gonna be the what's that series called? I can't remember the series name, right? So basically I'm just gonna name the cards, right? Yuki Onna, Shuten Doji, Otengu, Keijoro, and Tsuchigumo. Yeah, I remember the names. So this series, right, is next alongside with the Investigation of Gods as well as the Zodiac Part 1, Part 2. Right, so I foresee Madhead is probably gonna be doing the AR for the entire Lost Relic series, right, excluding collaboration series. Right, so next in line is definitely this series that I'm talking about just now, right, and then after that is gonna be, I'm quite surprised they skip Fort Sterling, right, but because Fort Sterling have their combination form, their fusion form and stuff like that, so it might be harder to do Awakening Recall, so they probably skip the Fort Sterling series because of that, right? So other than that, I think it should be going on. I can't really remember what's the next one after the Keijoro series. I think it might be the Heimdall series, the Swagder series, or there might be one more in between. I can't really remember, right? But you get what I mean, right? So it's gonna be the Lost Relic series. So let's move on, right? Power release, Virtual Rebirth, right? So we'll talk about power release, right? So power release, as much as I want Satan series to get power release, right? So I'm a fan of Fallen Halos, right? We have been playing, there's a lot of gameplay for Satan, Chesia, I don't care about Abraham, right? So this series was quite well played back then, right, when it first came out. So as much as I want them to be power release, right, I believe Revolutionary Heroes should get their chance of power release before touching on the Fallen Halos, right? So Revolutionary Heroes meaning Floris, Rococo, and Gang, right? So you guys know which series I'm talking about, right? So basically this series is the only series left in the entire general Diamond Seal pool that have not gotten its power release, right? So as you can see, Madhead, what Madhead do to Hunter x Hunter, Yu Yu Hakusho, those transformation cards, their charging EP condition now is actually just 3 runes of its attribute, right? Compared to Revolutionary Hero, which needs 5 attributes of its own kind to charge 1 EP, right? So in certain scenarios there won't be 5 attributes or 5 runes of your own attribute for you to dissolve, right? Maybe there's 3, right, enough for you to launch an attack, and that's about it, right? So by dissolving like a set of 3, it's not gonna charge your EP, right? So it's quite difficult to charge up like Floris and Rococo once you use up their EP, right? So I believe they might get a power release, right, in which after that their charging criteria is going to be the same as the Yu Yu Hakusho series and stuff like that, with dissolving 3 of their attribute recharges 1 EP, right? So of course we'll be looking forward to a bit of change in active skill and stuff like that as well, right? So really hoping Revolutionary Heroes to get their power release, right? As for Virtual Rebirth, I would bet it on... Actually, I have no idea for Virtual Rebirth, to be honest, right? So at this point of time, my Virtual Rebirth like schedule is still being stuck at Babylonians, right? So Babylonians have gotten their Virtual Rebirth, so at this point of time I'm not quite sure who's going to get Virtual Rebirth next, because I feel that every series now is pretty relevant in the index, I mean in the meta right now, right? So if you guys have any Virtual Rebirth predictions, right, do leave it down in the comments below. I really want to hear from you guys as well, right? So honestly, for me, Virtual Rebirth is only gonna happen to cards that really are popular in the meta but fell out of meta, right? So for example, Babylonians really needed that Virtual Rebirth, right? And then I feel that Madhead really did a great job, right, in ignoring sticky runes and burning runes and stuff like that, because it makes Babylonians viable again, right? So because these are like the main problem that forces Babylonians out of the meta, right? So now they're back, and I'm pretty happy with that, right? I'm pretty happy with the changes Madhead made to Babylonian gods, right? So comment down what's your prediction for the next Virtual Rebirth, right? I'll be sure to reply you guys in the comment section below. Okay, so next, Stuart Ng asks, why is it so difficult to power release Shen Gong Bao? Right, so after I see this question, I went back to see my Shen Gong Bao power release video, right? So I understand that it is a Trojan stage, right? Which means that the boss, the lower the HP, the higher its attack, right? Which is the same playstyle as you, right? So for you, you might want to understand how Shen Gong Bao leader skill works, right? So you allow the enemy to hit you a couple of times, right? Once you hit that low range, right, that part where your Shen Gong Bao start to flash and you get its multiplier, that's where you do your gigantic burst, right? So one tip, store hard runes, right, and then store dark runes and clear off the rest of the runes as much as possible, right? So when it's your chance to attack, just convert and do one big damage there, done. Alright, you should be able to clear that stage. Right, good luck to you. Alright, so next, Sebastian asking, is there a chance where Madhead will combine both server instead of separating it, which is what we have now, the English server and the Chinese server, where what are the pros and cons if we do combine? Right, so I believe there's not gonna be much like pros, because the pros is on the company itself, right? So basically, as far as the knowledge I have, right? So I'm not really an IT person or a programming person, right? So basically, if you run an app or a game, right, there must be this server that hosts the entire game, right? So if you find that there's server error, there's, you know, you can't log into the game, there's something wrong with the server and stuff like that, right? So you have to pay. You need a certain amount of money to sustain the server, right, in order to keep the game running and stuff like that, right? So that's like the main, the general idea of keeping a game alive, right? So by having English and Chinese server, Madhead have to pay like both sides for, you know, both servers to stay alive, right? So by combining, they just have to pay one, I guess, right? So those of you who know programming and stuff like that, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So the pros is basically for the company side, they save money and stuff like that, right? The cons though will be on our side. Right, so what's gonna happen if we merge servers, right? So basically, well, we do have one pro, we do have one advantage, in which is we can finally add Chinese side players as friends, right? Basically, that's about it, right? So let's talk about the cons more, right? I believe the cons affect us more, right? So we'll talk about it. So basically, once the server combine, right, most likely the English side is gonna be issued a new UID, right? So I did talk to Terry about it, you know, back then during the Malaysia meetup and stuff like that, right? So if this were to happen, right? So basically what they're gonna do is they're probably gonna issue a new UID to English servers. Right? So why English server? Because we are the smaller one, we are like the minority of the TOS population, right? So it is easier to issue us a new UID compared to issuing the Chinese side a new UID, right? There's more work done. So basically we are going to be issued a new UID, and I'm not really a fan of that because I love my 7-digit UID, right? It shows that I'm a veteran player in the English server, right? So I believe a lot of people are having like 8-digit UID, and that's about that's like the few. Right, basically 7-digit UID is a very, very old UID, right? So if we're gonna be issued a new UID, that's gonna impact. It's gonna have a bit of a feels. I'm gonna feel like I kind of like lost something, right? Because I can easily remember my UID, right? So the reason why they're gonna issue us a new UID, so for example my UID 4766017 is gonna be another, in the Chinese server there's gonna be another player with 4766017, right? So we can't just import our UID over. So basically that's how it's gonna go, right? So on top of that, let's talk about in-game, right? So we're gonna talk about guild events, we're gonna talk about arena. Everything will be under one server, right? So as you all know, Chinese server is very, very competitive. So those of you who are hardcore for guild events or guild events is already combined, so let's just leave that, right? So arena, so those people who are always striving for arena ranking, right? So that's gonna impact you guys a lot, right? Because you're going to be competing with the Chinese players, and that's about it, right? So I'm not a fan of like the ranking in arena. All I do is just to go in every week just to claim my diamonds, my harpy, and I'm happy with that, right? So overall that's gonna be what's gonna happen if we merge servers, right? So mixed feelings, right? You guys can let me know, right? Well, what do you think, right? If we are gonna combine server, right? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing for you guys? Alright, so next question is from Dylan Tan, asking if Madhead were to make you their card like carry, what would be your rarity, race, skill, leader skill, etc. Alright, so it's not really like a complete idea, right? So basically it doesn't have to be me as a card, right? I'm just suggesting this as a idea to Madhead, to be honest, right? So I feel that this is gonna be quite a brilliant addition to the play style of TOS, right? So if any staff is watching this, right, do consider this, right? So basically if I were to be created as a card, I don't care about the rarity, right? Just put it 6-star. I don't have to be 7-star, right? It's not about the rarity, right? Ophelie is better than some 7-star. Just saying, right? Azathoth is 6-star, but it's still better than some 7-star. Okay, so rarity doesn't matter, right? So race, I will keep it human race, right? Because gods, demons, dragons, all these have racism locked, right? We do come across that very often. Human are the one that seldom get locked down, right? So I want to keep my human race. So for the skill, so I'm not sure about leader skill, so we're not going to talk about leader skill, right? So I have this brilliant idea about active skill, or it can be leader skill, right? Depends on the playstyle, right? So what I actually suggest, right, Madhead to create, right? I have not suggested to them yet, right? So you guys can let me know whether it's a good idea or not, right? So basically, once you activate this active skill, right, this card will create a barrier on top of your HP. Right, so for example, if you have 10,000 HP, right, full HP of 10,000, right? So if you activate this card adds on, gives a barrier of 5,000 HP, for example, right? So this 5,000 HP will stack on top of your 10,000 HP, giving you 15,000 HP temporarily, right? So this 5,000 extra barrier or shield, I will call it shield probably, right, is gonna be the first to be depleted before it touches the HP, right? So for example, if the enemy hits you 8,000 damage, alright, so it's gonna deplete that 5,000 shield first, right, before touching the remaining 3,000 HP on your base HP, right? So I find that this is gonna be quite a good implementation, right? It's probably gonna be implemented to Machinas, right? Because Machina, you know, if the mechanical stuff and all this, you can generate shield and stuff like that, right? To shield your HP, right? So the shield goes first, the shield HP goes first before it depletes your actual HP, right? So I find that this is gonna be quite interesting play style, right? In terms, I don't think I don't think TOS have actually implemented this yet, right? So do let me know whether this is a good idea or not, right? I think that is pretty brilliant, right? So then we can have enemies that neutralize shield and stuff like that, right? So in the future, right, we'll never know, right? Do let me know in the comments below whether it's a good idea or not, right? So let's move on to the next question. And last but not least, we have our final question of the day, right, of the video actually, right, from Chrono Liang asking, you would usually make a pre-release card review for jackpot cards for each series, right, in which I do, and if you haven't watched, right, go watch it. Right, so I have released the jackpot card review for the Konosuba series, right? So if you guys have not watched that, do watch that to gain a bit of insight for the jackpot cards. Alright, so do you have any cards that you feel you have greatly overrated or underrated before it released, right? Especially for recent card this year, right? I find that this is a very, very good question, right? So thanks Chrono Liang for asking this, right? So yes, I have, alright? So honestly, let's just take Hindu Gods for example, right? I think I've extremely overrated Brahma, right? So Brahma, yes, he's the jackpot of the jackpot, right? So I find that his playstyle is a very unique playstyle, right? You're playing around based on what you have dissolved, and what you have not dissolved comes down as sky drop and stuff like that, right? So overall, I think that is a very nice gameplay implementation, right? But the thing is, as OP as it sounds, right, it's not exactly very powerful because you're being affected by time down debuff and stuff like that, right? So yes, Brahma, you can activate his active skill for extended rune movement time, but that's only for one turn, right? So if you get those, you know, other things, then it's not that great, right? Especially if you have like weathered runes, electrifying runes and stuff like that. It's a bit hard to play around with, right? And then it's very hard for you to spin in a way that you can predict or you can choose what you want the sky drop to be, right? So in some scenarios whereby there is like 2/2 of a certain attribute, right? So yeah, you get what I mean, right? We played quite a bit of Brahma already, so I find that Brahma isn't that powerful, right? So I've certainly overrated Brahma a little bit, right? So I think Vishnu would be the king of the Hindu gods, right? So Vishnu has been very constantly strong, right, in my opinion, and I think that I did underrated Vishnu a little bit, right? So you can pair with Gemini, you can pair with Anubis. The damage output is massive, right? So you have Luna to back it up as well, right? So you don't have to put those small little jackpot cards like what Varuna and Lakshmi and stuff like that, right? So overall, I find that really certain card reviews, right, I do find it a little, because those are all initial impressions, right? So of course I won't be accurate most of all the time, right? So we'll see, right? So this Konosuba collaboration, I predicted that Megumin is gonna be super OP, right? But we'll see how it goes, right? So maybe Darkness is better, maybe Aqua is better, we will never know, right? So we have to confirm how good it is once the patch drops, right? So overall, I find that this is a very good question, right? So I honestly did overrate and underrate certain cards before, right? So of course, things are not as good as it sounds sometimes, right? So overall, yeah, that's pretty much a summary of Brahma, right? Sounds good, but not that good. Alright, so that is the end of this month's Q&A session, which is September, by the way. Right, so thank you guys for sending in the questions once again, right? So we do have very interesting questions this month, right? I think I say that like every single month, right? So but this month we do have very, very good questions, right? So especially the last one, I really enjoy answering the last one, right? So I do hope to have more questions like this, right? So if you have a question, right, so I'll be opening October's Q&A probably like the 20th October and stuff like that. Right? Usually the last week of the month, I will open the Q&A post on my Facebook page, right? So if you guys have missed it, right, do look for my page in the description below, right? You can ask it once I, make a post of the Q&A for the month of October, right? So this is going to be the end of the video. If you guys enjoy it, do give it a like, and then as usual, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.